G'day guys and welcome, my name's Michael and I'm the Deadaussiegamer, here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing and running tabletop role-playing games. Today's question comes from our Discord server asking, how do we design a successful encounter for our RPG? Well, this is a fantastic question and one that will take me ages to really cover, so I'm going to be doing this in several videos. Today we're going to be talking about what is a successful encounter, some of the different types, and how you can really use them in your narrative to get the most out of your players. So, without any ado, what is a successful encounter? I mean, it could mean a whole bunch of different things. Is it how many hit points your players are at the end of the fight? Is it whether or not they're having fun? Honestly, I think the definition of a successful encounter changes as frequently as the encounters themselves. It's my firm belief that every encounter, whether it's a random encounter, a major plot point, something you're improvising to make those last few seconds of your game time count, all encounters need a goal. And as long as you achieve that goal and everyone's having a good time, then you have yourself a successful encounter. Now, there are so many different types of encounters out there, and I honestly would be remiss if I didn't mention that I am very much simplifying it for the purposes of these videos. But I've nutted down 3 predominant types of encounters that you will find work best for your narrative, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how you can use them. So, let's take a look at that now, if I can wave my magic. There we go. Okay, so the types of encounters that I narrowed down were player versus setting, player versus creature, and player versus logic. Now, these 3 types of encounters will crop up all the time, and as long as you can balance and pace yourself between these 3 types of encounters, you're going to have a great time. So, what is player versus setting? Now, player versus setting for me refers to when you pit your player characters up against a challenge that is in fact the world itself. This could be climbing a mountain, sailing the 7 seas, the harsh desert lands, or even the deep, dark caverns below the Earth's crust. All of these things and more compromise players versing the world around them. This doesn't have to be like an environmental effect either. This could be a social or political effect as well. The presence of particular encounters through a nation that is in turmoil. Are you playing a drow character? If so, how are you surviving on the surface? How do merchants and the like treat you? All of these things help build and develop the world, which is the strength of your player versus setting encounters. Allow me to give you an example. The players have to make it across a small stretch of ocean in order to reach a castle nearby. Now, in order to travel, it will take time, it'll take resources, it'll take effort. This could be something along the lines of, well, given it's going to be a 5-day worth of travel, let's talk food, let's talk rations. Maybe something happens to the rations while the ship is on its journey. Maybe a gremlin or a goblin has snuck aboard and has eaten the last of the supplies, and it comes down to the players to be able to find a new source of food. Maybe along the way, a storm rolls in and the swell manages to knock a crewman overboard, and the group must now search the oceans in the middle of a storm in order to recover their lost teammate before it is too late. These are player versus setting encounters, and their strength lies in building the world and to really help your players immerse themselves in your game. The second type of encounter is player versus creature. Now, this is what I also like to call the knee-jerk encounter. When we get to a point where we are suddenly confronted with an extra encounter that we need, extra time, or a sudden and abrupt twist in the story, it's very common for GMs to turn around and pick up their monster manual or their bestiary and flip to a page and go, yeah, you're an appropriate CR. Very well, you find this monster and now you have to fight it. But player versus creature encounters are more than just simply you getting to battle something out of the bestiary. Player versus creature encounters are all about being able to express your character's actions and to be able to engage in some meaningful interactions with a creature within the world. This doesn't have to be a fight. This could be a roleplay encounter. You approach a town and 2 guards refuse to let you in due to a quarantine. You and your comrades have not been cleared by the local physicians and thus are not permitted to enter the city. You can, however, talk your way through them, maybe bluff and pretend like you've already been. Or maybe you've come up with some other some other method to circumvent and get around these guards, stealth past them, disguise yourself as an old lady and say, well, I've already been, but you can ask and come back 10 times. These things and more constitute player versus creature encounters, and their function is to create and instill excitement. Regardless of what scenario you're in, a player versus creature encounter is always one that your players look forward to. They're always something that people are excited about. So if you find your characters or your players starting to get disengaged or starting to sort of tune out and sort of go, oh God, we've been in this town for ages. We've been looking for this one woman. I have not found her. We've asked everyone. We've been everywhere. That's the point where you want a player versus creature encounter to help liven things back up again. Alternatively, it is a double-edged sword. Having too many of your player versus creature encounters back to back to back equally works against it, as it can become very tiring, especially if you get into the I kick your shin, you kick my shin, I kick your shin, you kick my shin, oh, I kick your shin. You know, if you get to those kind of fights, well, yeah, doing too many of them becomes a grind and your players won't enjoy it. Alright, the last type of encounter is the player versus logic encounter. Now, I want to start with a disclaimer here. I do not ever condone GMs targeting their player for anything. You should be targeting your players' characters for things. Like if you're playing a horror game and you're dealing with someone who's afraid of spiders, don't bring a plastic spider and throw it at them. You know, yes, you're going to get a frightened response, but that's you being a monster, and we don't need that. Player versus logic, however, is the exception to this rule, because it is about challenging your players to logic, puzzles, and investigation. So these sorts of things are kind of like what we see when we look at riddles, or when we look at, sort of mechanical puzzles, that this button needs to be pushed and that door opens, but at the same time, if that one opens, this one's closed. Those type of encounters challenge your players' intelligence, which can be a lot of fun and which can be great. But as many GMs will tell you, you do need specific players who will enjoy that type of game. The advantage of using player versus logic is that you create a sense of mystery and discovery. Your players can go on a journey and really kind of get to know the ins and outs of what it is they're trying to learn. This could be you're learning about the identity of a serial killer, but along the way you've actually learnt about the background of this serial killer. It also serves to occupy time, and I know that sounds terrible, but look, let's face it, sometimes we want to pace out our story, sometimes we want to create a sense of time, and sometimes we rush through in-game time too quickly and we need to pull the reins back and delay our players. Logic puzzles and logic quests are huge time sinks, for the most part, as long as you don't use common-based riddles and stuff like that. Your players will find themselves deeply engaged in trying to solve a puzzle as players, sitting there and poring and mulling it over. Again, pros and cons. Pros, of course, being that it works fantastically, and if you use it sparingly, can be a really fun encounter. The con is that, well, you do need a very specific type of player, and if you can't figure out the puzzle, you can end up sinking a lot more time than you want in that one encounter. My recommendation for that is obviously make sure that your players' characters have means of investigating more or to learn more about the encounter so that they can use these hints and clues in order to solve the puzzle. So these are the types of encounters and where you would apply them. Now, aside from obviously picking the type of encounter that's going to be appropriate for your particular needs, you also want to kind of look at how your players are going to resolve the encounter. We can always guess what our players are going to do, and at the end of the day, until you really familiarize yourself with a group, it's always going to be hard. But these 3 methods here are probably the simplest ways to break down how your players are going to solve any problem. Number 1, roleplay. They're going to try and talk their way out of it, or they're going to try and use their wit, their cunning, and their character powers and abilities to basically just try and overcome this encounter. I am talking to this velociraptor as it's staring me down, and I'm going to use handle animal to try and scooch it away. It could be something along the lines of, I am going to try and convince the queen that I am in fact an heir to the throne myself, so that I will get an audience with this beautiful woman and try and convince her to withdraw her troops from the countryside. These roleplay encounters, these type of resolutions are a lot of fun and lend themselves well to player versus setting encounters or non-hostile player versus creature encounters. Hostile player versus creature encounters can often lead to like the whole roleplay thing, but I'm going to talk about circumventing encounters in a minute, and that's kind of where I place that. So let's keep going. So roleplay. Battle. Now this is the easiest one to go for because it's basically getting into a fight. And of course, player versus creature is where that one honestly just nails it. It is all about, like how big, how strong, how mighty the creature is. And of course, how well and how fast you can kill it. But this being said, there is a nuance to battling. And I want to explain this as succinct as possible. We will talk about it in another video, but I want to just explain. Winning a battle does not necessarily need to be having anyone's hit points reduced to 0. Winning a battle could be something along the lines of, you need to hold off this monster for 3 rounds. At the end of 3 rounds, you have won, and you just need to escape. A battle could be something along the lines of you defeating or you breaking something that is amidst the battlefield. So you've got this vampire who is trying to protect this glass mirror for some reason. During the scope of the battle, you realize that the mirror is important and he keeps trying to maintain distance between you and it. So you throw a rock and you break it and suddenly the battle is over. Don't limit the idea of battles to be these numbers versus that number and that's how you win. Battle is a very versatile, very fluid, very narrative experience if you want it to be. And the last type is circumvention. This is where you don't want anything to do with the encounter and you want to move around it. This is not a bad thing, as it is not only a means of overcoming an encounter, but your players also eat up time figuring out how to overcome an encounter. This could be something as simple as, we cast invisibility and walk past the deadly monster. Or it could be something along the lines of, here is a logic puzzle that is barring the door. Very well. I use pass through stone and walk through the stone door. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Circumventing encounters is fantastic, but it can, however, shorten your expected gameplay time quite drastically if it's used too much. You should not penalize your players for using circumvention. In fact, reward them. Give them see it as an opportunity to boost their morale, that they have outsmarted the GM, that they have conquered the quest with little to no expenditure. That is what you want them to feel, and that's what you want them to do, because it sets them up for the next battle and the next fight, which could easily be a lot harder. And they're walking in excited and still, full of happiness and gumption and really wanting to get into it. If you kind of go with, well, you can only roleplay or battle your way through everything, you'll find that every battle, every roleplay slowly but surely whittles down. Sometimes you just need to let them have a win when they've earned it. Ow. I just elbowed my table. Okay. So, these are my views on the types of encounters and the types of resolution. Now, the next 2 videos are going to be great. We're going to be focusing on how to look at the encounter as a narrative, and we're going to be looking at how to pace the difficulty and the timing of an encounter as well. So do stay tuned for those ones, which will be out next week and the following week. In the meantime, however, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. If you've got any questions regarding how you would like, information you'd like to know about designing an encounter, leave them in the comments below. I will address as many of these questions as I possibly can, either in the chat or in the following videos. So the more information you guys can give me, the better I can make those videos. If you want to check out some of our other stuff, we've got our Facebook page, facebook.com/Deadaussiegamer. You can go check us out on Twitch at twitch.tv/Deadaussiegamer. We're starting a new Pathfinder 1st edition series based on strange aeons, which is a lot of fun. There was a little bit of a snafu, so I need to upload those videos that we've already recorded. So yeah, do stay tuned for that. And of course, if you want to help support us, then please head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/DeadAussieGamer, where you could get access to a whole bunch of very secret videos about voice acting and performance, as well as a podcast and I believe a free kind of NPC character, which is going to be really cool. And the first one is actually a throwback to my my previous farewell message, and I'm going to be introducing mind worms. So yes, be sure to keep on the lookout for that. So without any further ado, and Discord in the chat below as well. If you want to come say hi and chat and stuff like that, yeah, follow the link. Until next time, guys, as always, from the Dead Aussie Gamer, game hard or die trying. See yas!